Samudro of IMAP, Awakening Psychology, Finding the Way to Yourself. And I've got some more questions today that are relevant for the path of awakening. So today's question is, what is the ego? How to get rid of the ego? Okay, so short answers first. The ego is that part of us who we think we are, but it's an unconscious part. And why do we need to know what is the ego? Because in spirituality, on the path of awakening, ego is what causes your suffering, and being beyond the ego is the path to liberation, the path of awakening. So ego is non-awakening. Ego is that part of you that is asleep, and awakening is the part of you that's awake. That is not the ego. Let's say it's the being. So very simple definition. The ego is that part of you that is sleeping, and the being is that part of you that can be awakened. It is your true self. Now that is the short answer. Right, so a bit more, if you want to keep watching and hear the longer answer, please. You're welcome. All right, so where to start? Where does the ego come from? Is it given to us? Is it something natural? Is it something good? Is it something bad? Okay, I would think it's a mixture. Partly, it is just normal and natural to have an ego, to have a sense of identity. So that we can give as a bit deeper definition of what is the ego. The ego is our identity. It's not just conscious identity that I think I am Samudro, that is a name, a Sanskrit name that I've chosen as my label. Okay, I'm not just Samudro, it's then, or I'm not just a man, or not just someone who was born in Britain who speaks English. These are maybe facts, but even behind those facts, there's a part of me that starts to have what we can say is the personality. Now, my personality is the part that I am showing to the world. And it's useful, like, if I say, if I write a letter to you, or an email, I'm going to have to write Samudra at the bottom. So you know who it's from, that it's not just from God. So the ego it's a useful function. Personality is a useful function in society. It helps us relate with other people. And if we look at if it's natural or not, well, like I was just saying, it is partly natural. Because if we could see that it's based on biological instinct, survival instinct, that if I want to survive better, if I want to have more money, if I want to have better food, better house to live in, then if I am proving my skill or my contribution to society, then society will reward. So it's not just survival, it's survival plus a reward system that we actually learn in our early childhood, at school, with our family. If we take the concept, and it is a concept, not 100% truth, but if we take the concept that a child is born into this world very natural, very innocent, like a tabula rasa, an empty slate, a white piece of paper, and that the impressions of the society are written onto that white paper. Mama says, "Oh, you're a good boy." Daddy says, "Oh, you're a bad girl." Oh, but you don't want to be a bad girl in father's eyes. You want to have him to hug you. So you change your behavior to fit to the behavior that your father approves of. Then he gives you a hug. And if because he gives you a hug, then you feel, oh, yes, I'm okay. I have a right to be in this family. And maybe they will allow you to eat. If you're a bad child, go to your room, no dinner for you tonight. Our system of reward and punishment for children is teaching them evaluations of what is right or wrong. That you are a bad girl, you're a bad boy, you're a good girl, So then the child takes that evaluation or that judgment from the parents and from the teachers. It's not just about good or bad, but it could be about beauty, intelligence, about any of the behaviors. And those feedbacks, actually it's not really a correct word, feedback is too nice a word. It's a judgment, the judgments and evaluations from the society, parents, family, teachers, that then the child absorbs them, takes them in. So the child is trying to survive. The child is trying to find its place in this world. And that's why conditioning works so effectively, why the carrot and the stick work so effectively on training children. And is, basically used all around the world, in all societies, in all of history. Just like, you train a dog or a pet, you train children the same way. They do a behavior that you want, you reward, and then they will continue to do it. Especially because the parents not only give food and shelter, they're giving a concept to the child of who they are. And the child wants to find out who they are. There's a part of us, even as a little child, we don't know who we are when we come into this world, and we want to find out. It's quite innocent, like, I want to know. Children really want to know about this world. And the parents, the adults, they know. And then they tell the child, in this way, this is the right way to live, and that's the wrong way. And so the child absorbs these judgments from the adults, just takes them in like food. So which part of it is, of us, absorbs and holds on to these judgments? So just like we are not just bodies that eat food, we have a mind. Perhaps when we're little children, we're not calling it the mind yet, but there's some sort of cognition, ability to see the world and understand the world. The cognitive functions then start to absorb information from the whole world. And we get an idea of what is this life. And then slowly that becomes what we call the mind. So during childhood, we start with a natural, but basically unconscious concept, self-concept. And then it slowly becomes more conscious. But because we train the children to learn that life is according to these rules. We are not training our children from the beginning to question who they are. Now, perhaps by very rare, very, very rare, some child is born who has carrying some quality of spirituality from previous lives. Okay? Then that child might question, what are you telling me, Mummy? What are you telling me, Daddy? This is not right. Most of us don't have that courage when we're little children to say, I don't believe in what you're telling me. We absorb, and then we cling to what we absorb. And then we start to develop this concept. Let's call it a self-concept. So we could say that self-concept is like a proto-ego. Proto means young and in development. Self-concept is an ego that's in the process of development. That later, as we get a bit older, older childhood, but by the time we get into teenage times, and definitely by adult times, then this self-concept has formulated into a more defined personality, a more defined ego. But let's say that the personality is then a layer of consciousness, or let's say a layer of unconsciousness that we hold around us, that is trying to, it's like a buffer between ourselves and the society. And we need it, it's like names are needed, it's a label, we need to function in this world. But behind that personality is still a core part of us that there's still searching for this self-concept. We still want to know who we are. Now this is, on the path of awakening, in spirituality, this is very essential, that we understand that within the human, somehow humans have this deep longing to discover who they are. And if we go back to that basic longing, that we can redirect that longing towards spirituality, rather than longing towards development of achievement in our society, surviving better, having more status. Okay, so we can also say that in spirituality, this core longing to discover who we are is what we are working with in meditation. When we meditate, it's like we're trying to get to that original state of self-inquiry. Who is this being that I am? It's like when we that's why so much emphasis on childhood innocence comes in spirituality. That if we can go back to this very beginning, when we were little children and we were like curious about the world. What is this world? What is this experience? What is this being? What is this body? What is this mind? What are these thoughts? Right? Then that quality of innocence is very different than the ego. The ego knows, I know who I am, and I am bigger and greater, or I am lesser. So this is also a core characteristic of the ego, that it's always comparing. I am more than you, or I am less than you. Now, when we boost the ego, I want to prove, I am more clever than you, I am more rich than you, I am more beautiful than you, I am something more than you. But some people have a reversed ego in a way. I am lesser than other people. I'm not such a big extrovert. I'm more quiet. I'm more introvert. But I'm more clever. It's always this concept of I am someone or something is often linked to a comparison, comparing oneself to another person. Now, if we could do an experiment that a human would just be brought up remotely without any connection to other humans, and we could study them, it's almost unbelievable that we could have that. So humans, we are always in connection with other people, and we tend to compare ourselves with others, that they are like that. So I must be like this. So it's like there's a natural mechanism inside us that is always looking, who am I? But ego is always looking outside. Even if it's a thought, it's still even though the thought we think is inside, but it's still a thought that's related to other people. I remember someone who is more successful than me. Then I start to get in an ego struggle. One part of me then reacts, oh, I feel bad, I'm not so good, not enough people are looking at my YouTube canal, or another people are doing great business on YouTube. I feel bad, right? So that is also, even though it's in my mind and my emotions, it's still outwardly based. I'm looking at other people, I'm comparing. Whereas non-ego will be, okay, I'm just in myself, I'm in my presence, and I'm trusting life. I'm not struggling with life. If people want to watch my YouTube, great. People don't, okay, great. I'm just sharing, all right? So non-ego is more based on these positive qualities of trust, relaxation, going with the flow of life. And if we pay more attention to that, these positive spiritual qualities of just being, then we feel more in harmony with the world, with nature. Well, I mean the universe, not the human world, but the natural world or the universal spirit. So this is what we're looking for as a guideline in spiritual development.